All right, my friends, as you know, some fascinating things have been happening in Kursk, Russia, and we're going to go over things. We're going to ask a couple of questions. One, how did this happen? How did the Russians let this get so bad? And then two, what happens next? So I'm going to bring you through a number of different scenarios, but I was up late last night. I saw this meme and I was like, I saw this meme at 2 something in the morning, and I was in bed before 3, but not by a lot. Okay, so Ukrainian blackout of the invasion of Russia is gone. Here are soldiers of the 61st Brigade recording a video at the Gazprom offices in Sutsa district center of Kursk region of Russia. The city is under control of the armed forces of Ukraine and quiet. Okay, so we know that they're there. During the 3 days of the Ukrainian armed forces offensive, the Russian authorities have declared victories in the Kursk region at least 6 times, and they have. And I saw that I've seen at least 4 or 5 of those 6. But after each victory, the situation worsened. So it's about to get much, much worse for Russia. But how did it get worse? That's the first question that we want to answer, and we'll let the ISW do that. Operator Starsky said, one thing that you won't find in Kursk Oblast is civilian mass graves like in Bucha or Izium. I bet nobody will be stealing toilets and conditioners either. Ukraine is not Russia. They're going to operate very differently, and we'll see that as we go forward. Now, this guy was saying she's struck by the fact that we can barely work out with confidence which Ukrainian brigades and what proportion of them are properly in Kursk, let alone if anything is in reserve or what precisely is happening. OSINT can't be absolutely magical and sometimes incredibly limiting. And it was. They were on like radio silence here for the last few days, and we're starting to find things out. But Ben Hodges replied, we're not entitled to know with certainty what's going on. Ukrainian General Staff is correctly protecting their plans from us. If we know, then the Russians know, and they're teaching us that drones do not guarantee absolute clarity through the fog of war. Good observation, but this is all OSINT. This is all things that we know, and now you will know. Okay, and you'll know it because, well, there's no better ally than an idiot enemy. Russian TV channel presenter literally showed live the exact location of the movement of Russian convoys of equipment and personnel into the Kursk region. Now all we have to do is wait. And some bad things happen when they know the location, so we'll talk about that in a moment. Let's look at this Institute for the Study of War, and we're just going to look through a few of these, and then we're going to look at something else, and then some scenario planning for what's going to happen next. The lack of a coherent Russian response to the Ukrainian incursion into Kursk Oblast and the reported rate of Ukrainian advance indicates that Ukrainian forces were able to achieve operational surprise along the border with Russia. I was surprised. I paid close attention to everything that's going on, and I was surprised. Imagine what the Russian surprise was like here, though. I mean, it's got to be something very significant. Both the Russian and Ukrainian forces have struggled to achieve operational surprise in the past year and a half of fighting due to the partially transparent battlefield in Ukraine. Drones have changed everything, and so since you can see what they're doing and they can see what you're doing, it was hard to pull this kind of thing off. Ukraine's ability to achieve operational surprise highlights that the widespread visual and sensor-based transparency that both sides have established does not translate into fully transparent battlefield, though. And one Russian mill blogger criticized the Russian military command for failing to observe and react to Ukrainian forces allegedly massing on the border near Kursk Oblast. Now, I get that, but yesterday, in this particular video, Kurt's Invasion Day 3, full explanation, I think this was the one where I was highlighting Ryan Macbeth. Or, no, yeah, it was in the... it was one of these. I'm sorry, I don't remember which one. But Ryan Macbeth was saying, like, look, they could have built up on the board... Yeah, I think it was in this one. Sorry, it was in the latest on Ukrainian breakthrough in Kursk. Ryan Macbeth was saying that, look, they could have built up on the border, and just building up on the border, they, the Russians were thinking, well, they're not coming over here. They're just building up to keep us out. And if that was the case, we understand why it would have been like that. Okay, a prominent Kremlin-affiliated Russian mill blogger, and by the way, Russian mill bloggers are our best source of information now, not Russian state media. Russian mill blogger claimed that Russian forces continually warned the Russian high command about massing of Ukrainian forces along the border near Kursk Oblast, but the Russian command failed to adequately prepare. And I believe that's exactly what happened. Okay, so now that brings us to what happens next. Shell is a company in the business literature that's well regarded for scenario planning. It's an oil company, but they're trying to expand out beyond oil into something more like energy. So, and that's because they say, well, what if oil is no longer the thing? What if oil dries up? Or what if the world doesn't want oil? What are we going to do? Is hydrogen the future? Well, then they have a plan for that. What's the role of biofuels? Well, then they have a plan for that. How long until all the world's cars are electric? We explore how the future could unfold and help people make better decisions today. So they're involved in deep scenario planning, and that's what we're about to see here in the ISW. Potential Russian courses of action. Courses of action is the military term for the scenario planning. The Kremlin will almost certainly endeavor to retake Russian territory in Kursk Oblast that Ukrainian forces have seized and stop Ukrainian activity further into Russia, as substantial Ukrainian advances within Russia would be a strategic blow to Russian President Vladimir Putin's decades-long effort to cement a legacy of Russian stability, security, and geopolitical resurgence. If Russian reporting on the situation in Kursk Oblast is accurate, and if the Russian military command perceives the situation to be the same as Russian sources have described, then Russian military command has an array of likely courses of action it could pursue, and we're going to look at those. Now, there's some caveats. ISW is not prepared at this time to assess which of these possible courses of action are most likely. The Russian military command decision-making will be influenced by its perception of the size and capability of Ukrainian forces in the area, about which the ISW makes no assessment. Now, I saw 300, I saw 1,000, I saw 2,000, I saw 6,000, I saw 10,000 as different estimates all along the way. And they need quite a few soldiers in Ukrainian soldiers in Russia in order to pull this off. So I'm sure it's not the 300 that they first started with or the 1,000 that they first started with. It's larger than that. Okay. Course of action number one. The Russian military command may decide to use existing conscripts, Federal Security Service border guards, and other irregular forces already deployed to the international border area to push Ukrainian forces back in Kursk Oblast. Okay, I don't think that's going to work. I don't think they want to do that because when you lose conscripts, and again, going back to this, it was Anders that was talking about, I think, well, Anders was talking about it, but so were some others. In this video before that, I was talking about had highlighted something from Georgie from Ukraine Matters, who was talking about this, and William Spaniel talking about how conscripts, you don't want to use those conscripts because Russians don't care if volunteers die, but when conscripts start dying, that's bad. It goes back to bad blood from the Afghan war. And so they may not want to use conscripts. And the conscripts are terrible fighters, and they're more valuable. Jake Bro pointed this out yesterday. They're more valuable, and Putin will want them back and want to exchange them quicker. And so it's just a bad thing. They're rolling over the conscripts that are there. Okay. Course of action number two, the Russian military command may decide to use the existing northern grouping of forces deployed along the Russian-Ukrainian border to respond to the Ukrainian operation in Kursk. Except the northern grouping of forces has failed to achieve even limited tactical objectives. They're poorest soldiers. They're very bad soldiers, and so just moving them from there, and they don't want to move the ones from Donetsk because they're trying to push through Donetsk into Petrovsk. So they don't want to do that, but they may have to. Course of action number three, the Russian military command may choose to redeploy operational reserves that it has accumulated for its planned summer 2024 offensive effort, or relatively better provisioned and more combat effective frontline units to Kursk Oblast from elsewhere in the theater. So that would be like from Belgorod, those troops, move them over if they're not surrounded or don't get sandwiched by Ukrainians on either side, which may very well happen. Or and it doesn't say it here, but or they could move them from the heavy concentration that they have at the Donetsk, but that would undo everything that they're trying to do in taking Petrovsk. Okay. Course of action number four, the Russian military command may seek to maintain the forces it currently has committed to Kursk Oblast, but could redeploy a significant aviation and strike elements to the area in an effort to improve Russia's ability to retake the territory. So this might be, in their minds, the least bad, but if aviation starts getting hit, like knocked down, and it seems like if the Ukrainians have planned through this, they might have planned that that could happen and have anti-aircraft ammunition or anti-aircraft rockets at the ready for this kind of thing. But we'll see. We'll see what they can actually do. In the meantime, those are the courses of action that they'll take. This is Julia Davis at the Russian Media Monitor showing just what it's like driving down the street. I mean, she's not showing any injury or that kind of thing. Just look at the vehicles that are just somebody just driving down through Kursk, and you can see it, but you won't see it on Russian state media. In fact, what I saw when I was on RT last night, looking through official Russian state media videos about this, very little about Kursk. I mean, I'm thinking like this is like the biggest thing that's happening to your country in I don't know how long, and there's almost nothing. There were a couple little videos about a journalist that was, well, propagandist that was injured, and here they're going to attack, and some planes going off or something like that, but very little. Okay, Arthur Rahe. Ukraine has expanded the combat zone in the Kursk region to, and this is the largest number that I've seen, 430 square kilometers. I've not seen anybody else report that large, but perhaps that's it. They have managed to destroy a Russian column, which was most likely moving in to reinforce the attack on a military column on the Kursk region. According to the military analyst, the entire battalion was destroyed. This is one of the bloodiest and most massive strikes, most likely HIMARS, in the entire war. So I think the Ukrainians are prepared for what comes next. Now, can they get approval for ATACMS for the Kursk offensive? They're asking Washington for approval, and I don't know that they're going to get it. An advisor to President Zelensky, who spoke on the condition of anonymity, told the Washington Post that this request, if approved, could allow Kyiv to maintain its hold on a portion of Kursk Oblast for an extended period. This will give them the leverage that they need for negotiations with Russia. The Biden administration has not objected to the incursion. They've just been like, yeah, Ukraine's doing what Ukraine's doing, but will they allow them to use the ATACMS? While the Biden administration has not yet responded to the ATACMS use request, it has previously allowed them to use donated weapons to preempt or intercept attacks originating from Russia within the border areas, but only on a limited scale. Okay, last couple things. This was Putin as he was making his demands on February 24th of 2022, and this was Putin just yesterday on the day before yesterday, rather, on the 7th of August 2024, finding out about Kursk. So that's what happens. And this is a map of where the battle lines are right now. And as far as we know, again, we have the fog of war. Okay, just for fun, I put out here, explain what's happening in Kursk, and this is on my community tab. And if you're not subscribed to this channel, please consider subscribing. I do daily updates every day. Just for fun, explain what's happening in Kursk, but be sure to say it with a double meaning. I'll read the best ones tomorrow if they're good, and so I have a few of them. The number of Ukrainian speakers that need protecting in the region increased dramatically in the last few days. Time for a referendum. Okay, breaking news. Russia, the most open and free country on earth, has decided to let Ukraine immigrate into Russia as a gesture of goodwill. Yeah, you remember like the Snake Island goodwill gesture? Okay, a couple more. Ukraine is returning the favor to Russians, and by far my favorite, Zelensky agrees to buffer zone. Russia's to comply. Okay, and with that, Kadyrov promised good results in Kursk within 2 or 3 days. The head of the Chechnya did not specify from which side these results would come. And there we are. Okay, my friends, that's everything that you need to know. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.